So here's a match against Absol. Absol's been around for a while and is a very good player. So this season, because of Rosenseal, a lot of people have shifted over to playing single target boxes. But as you can see, Absol plays almost a pure AoE box. You of course have a lot of the standard debuff AoE characters like Bozel and Reen, but he has also decided to include a lot of the powerhouse AoE characters like Lambda and Arian Rod. So the first ban juggler from him does make sense. Now I'm currently running a 3-tank box, which does have a couple problems. If someone like Absol decides to first ban my juggler, that means I have to pick one of my tanks, assuming I don't want to just play tankless. So that of course means that my Rosenseal and Liana are banned. So now that I've lost all my strongest debuff removal characters, he of course goes into the Bozel pick. So with the ban pick going the way it is, I decide to forego a healer and instead go full offensive. So I pick Olandius and then follow that up with SP Elwyn. He bans Tiaris after this, so I'm still left with Almeida if I want to do a traditional tank push fight. But there's no way that Almeida can handle Bozel, so I instead go for the full offensive team and pick Yulia. So eventually he does get rid of both Chris and Almeida. So this is essentially an AoE versus single target team, and neither side has a pure healer to fall back on. So this is going to be one of those matches where who decides to engage first and when they decide to engage is going to determine the entire match. Since Absol third picked Akka, he does have more movement than me, and he came in with Crystal Warlocks on both his Rachel and his Bozel, so he's not going to get slowed down by my Olandius tiles. Juggler of course gets slowed down by the Olandius tiles, but nobody else does. So probably the most important thing for me to do here is to stay out of range of his Bozel. It's possible for me to recover from an AoE from Rachel or Lambda, but Bozel's Black Hole just has too many debuffs, and a single cast of that can probably just end the game for me. Lambda is still something of a huge concern because she has just such huge range. Lambda with a line AoE can shoot up to 7 spaces away, and of course with Akka boosting her movement by 2, she covers a great deal of the map. And of course since I don't have a healer, she can shoot me from far away for free. And of course, if I had a healer like I normally do, I can just heal that back up. But in cases like this, if Lambda initiates on me, that's going to be very difficult for me to get that HP back. In matches like this, there's going to be a lot of turns where we're just going to dance around each other a lot, and that's exactly what's happening here. What you'll notice on my end is that I'm not only trying to play keep away as much as I can, but I'm also splitting my team apart so that if I do get hit by an AoE, it doesn't cripple my entire team. This is arguably one of the weaknesses of Absol's box. Typically in a lot of AoE rush boxes, they're still going to have 1 or 2 single target specialists, ideally very long range single target specialists, because that way you force your opponent to huddle around their tank so that they don't get killed by that one single target unit. These days it's usually an SP Elwyn, and Ares of course also fills that role. Absol does have Ares in his box, but he didn't pick him this time. And of course I also have Olandius on my side to try to prevent exactly that. Now you'll notice at one point that Absol actually decided to jump his dog. Not exactly in place, but very close to his team. And of course the reason for that is that my Elwyn is already threatening his team, so he used Juggler's jump to put Triton back up. Otherwise I likely could have just ran forward and taken out a target of my choice, with Bozel being the ideal target here, of course. So basically what I did here is that by staying back near the start and splitting my team apart, I stalled out Juggler's guard so that I forced his 3-cost skill early on, and I stalled out Akka's movement and attack buff on everyone. So now that he's actually run out of attack buff on his units, for example as you saw, Rachel could not one-shot Elwyn even with Dark Scythe. So now I get to engage him, and I even push him back a little bit to try to prevent him from AoEing me too much. Because, of course, a single AoE, especially from that Bozel, can spell the end for me. Elwyn loses his first life here, but it's not a big deal. I can just run forward and heal back up and attack Juggler again. But he did save Bozel as the last move here, so with Elwyn no longer having a immunity buff, he just puts him to sleep. And since I just killed Juggler, he also has a wolf to work with now, so that allows him to buff his team once again. And you'll also notice that he actually put Lambda out front as the target for me to hit, because he's already used up the AoEs from Lambda, so this is pretty good positioning on his part. I was lucky enough to get a breeze on Yulia the previous turn, so now I can just run her in and take out Lambda. Even though she's burned most of her AoEs, like I said, it's still nice to be able to take her out. Now you'll notice that after battle I decide to move left 1 square. This is a mistake on my part. So what you don't see in this replay is that at this point both Absol and I were actually very low on time. All that dancing around you saw us doing in the first 2 or 3 turns was actually really long. We both took a really long time to make each move. So at this point in the match we had the numbers showing up in our face and telling us to hurry up. And you know, that always results in a lot of herpa-derp moves. But anyway, he's really blasting me with the AoEs now, so all I can really do is to attack with Layden and hope I can do some damage to him. Layden actually nearly dies attacking into Rachel here, which is really funny. So here comes the black hole on 2 targets. Now because old Landius blows up before Bullseye applies a lot of his debuffs, Landius still gets hit with all forms of cancer here. But what it does do is 2 things. First, I can get Elwyn out of the way, and Layden was actually in range of old Landius's full cleanse. So now he has his revive back from the Redeemers. So when Rachel goes in for the kill here, Layden can actually heal back up a little bit. So now it's Absol's turn to make a mistake with the fog. He places Rachel back 1 tile, and that allows me to move Layden up and lock down Rachel because Layden's movement down aura lasts 2 turns. Yulia dies in the fog because I was dumb, so he gets another wolf. So he actually buffs here first. So that actually allows Landius to attack the wolf and kill it here. Because Akayo's wolves are indeed cavalry class, so Landius can actually deal a pretty decent amount of damage to them. And again, probably due to the timer blowing up in his face like it is for me, he makes another mistake here. He tries to attack Layden, but Landius has his guard up, so instead he hits Landius. He was probably trying to kill Layden so that his Rachel wouldn't be locked down anymore. So that pretty much clinches the match. Definitely a very close match. Always very scary to go without a healer, and this match was no different.